And what kind of player am I? Am I an offensive man or a defensive man? That's right, I'm neither. I play my opponent. If he likes to attack, I force him to defend himself. If he's a cautious man, I draw him into dangerous waters. See, you get so frustrated playing defensive positions, you make stupid moves you never make if you were thinking. When you come here, boy, check that shit at the door.
I'm at the top of my game, cut the check. Somebody better king me, I'm the best. Let's play a game of checkers. Better yet, the game don't love nobody. Let's play chess.
I keep forgetting when I'm in love anymore. I keep forgetting.
All right, we're back for a 10th episode of the Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast. Today, I want to get into, yesterday, I discussed, and I'm drinking Fat Tire today, and as you can see, I just got my hat in. The first template, to give you a little preview real quick. So it looks nice. The lines came out well. It was printed well. The only problem is it came out more purple than it did blue. I'm actually kind of impressed. It's actually somewhat showing up blue here on the screen. However, I like the product. Don't mind the gray hair. I can't get rid of it at this point. There's no changing it. So, yesterday I discussed the issues with the stimulus bill and how laden, filled with pork it was, and I read off everything that was in it, which I'm then willing to do again, just for future reference, for context as we continue today. Because I want to get to the fact that Trump vetoed it, and what I think is probably the best move that he could have done, and what I was asking for yesterday. So I'm going to read this off. This is some of the pork. Again, Congress didn't allow us to actually be able to see most of what was in it. It was very much like bills that they've passed before, in which we're not allowed to see the finished product until after they ram it down our throats with no remorse, or at least taking us out for a nice night on the town. All right. So in this pork that we had, this bill that was filled with random bullshit, we have the Kennedy Center got $26,400,000. The Smithsonian got $1 billion. The National Art Gallery got $154 million. National Arts and Humanities got $167 million. The Wilson Center got $14 million. Egypt, now this is where we get into the foreign aid. Egypt got $1.3 billion. Sudan got $700 million. Ukraine got $453 million. Israel got $500 million. Nepal got $130 million. Burma got $135. Cambodia got $85.5. And Pakistan got $25. And Asia RIA got $1.4 billion. Now, and as you know, in the original bill, us, the citizens, me and you, fuck us right, we were going to get $600. Now, all that aside, no, I shouldn't say aside. Keep it in mind, because it's really aggravating to continue to see how DC acts when they think no one's going to pay attention. They did a damn near 6,000-page bill, and they weren't allowed to talk and discuss in committee. They had a few hours to be able to read it and vote on it. You can't read 6,000. I don't care how great of a reader you are. I don't care if you have a photographic memory. You can't do 6,000 pages in a couple hours like that and retain the information at the level that you need to be able to make cognitive decisions on that information to affect not only life but the constituents in which you serve. So it was a complete cluster, and we got screwed. We were getting hosed as usual. So what I say, knowing all of this and seeing how we were getting played, and they blatantly were trying to screw us over. Both Republicans and Democrats had a hand in throwing in stuff. Now, if you look at this bill that went through the House, literally people must have walked up and just thrown an idea on a pile of paper, because this is every single piece of bullshit legislation that has not been able to be passed for like the past 10 years, all thrown into a single bill. And the 6,000 pages, and you got to add footnotes, and you got to add the references, and all the other stuff that goes along with that. So the passing of this bill was completely disingenuous to begin with. It in no way brings anything valuable to the discussion or puts us in a position that we need to be in to be able to move forward past the COVID-19 stimulus and into an area where we can actually be able to recover at the end of this, is what I'd like to say. And much to my surprise, because I didn't think it was going to happen, honestly, I don't expect much from politicians, and that includes our president, not because I haven't seen him make a valiant effort, but because the reality is politicians are limited by their environment, the people around them that they have to work with, and so on and so forth. And to be honest, Trump has gotten a lot of bad advice, and he's had a lot of establishment-type cronies that he's brought into his administration, because the people that he originally brought in, the pure outsiders that he had before, were not really able to get anything done. So them being there was largely useless, and you can see that evident by the fact that they've not really been able to accomplish a whole lot their entire time in office. Okay, that's weird. Sorry, my messages from this app just went off for some reason. But either way, that's neither here nor there. What I was saying is, when we look at everything that we're dealing with right now, and we're heading into the holidays, and of course Congress is taking a recess, Trump vetoed the bill and asked for $2,000 per adult or $4,000 for a couple. I didn't hear any allocation for children like was in the last one. Personally, I want a clean bill, and I'm okay with the $2,000 for an adult in the unemployment. And I am, because the resurgence of the shutdowns pushing people into unemployment, and we're seeing businesses shutting down due to the surge in cases, not being able to keep workers on the payroll at the moment. So I understand that we're not in a perfect situation. We're not in the perfect situation that we would like to be able to move past all of this and get into a better position. So I'm willing. I haven't given up my principles. I'm still a hardcore conservative, constitutionalist, largely libertarian on many issues, especially social issues, because I believe we should all be able to live our lives as long as you're not infringing upon my rights and I'm not infringing upon yours. There should be no issues between us. So that shouldn't be a problem. So again, it got sent back to Congress. Now, before, when the arguments were going on, the Democrats had actually offered originally $2,000, and Mitch McConnell, because from what every Republican senator and congressman, or every congressman and senator has said so far, there's only a few people sitting in a room discussing this, which I think is a huge problem. That these are closed door discussions and negotiations that affect my wallet and affect your, and it shouldn't be happening behind closed doors. It should be happening on the House floor, on a Senate floor. It should be happening out in front of people. Do it at a conference table with a camera. I don't care. But people need to be able to see what is being discussed, because this horse trading in which everyone in office gets what they want, but we get screwed, needs to stop. So the original negotiations, Republicans, Mitch McConnell specifically, because he's the one who controls the Senate, worked down Nancy Pelosi to, he worked her down to about $600 originally. Now Donald Trump stands up on stage and says, "I said go big or go home. I want $2,000." Now, this isn't any different than what he said in October, because he said the same thing back then. I want them to go big. I want people to be able to take care of what they haven't been able to take care of this entire time since the pandemic has started. And I think that's a valid concern. I think it's a completely valid concern. I have no idea why, and I understand the budget implications. All right, but you're not going to fix the budget till we cut spending, and that means cutting regular spending. You can't just get pissed off when, and both sides play this game where they play the budget game only when it actually benefits them. The Democrats did it most notably with the wall, and then you had Republicans that do it every time there's a social program issue. And I'm not for most social programs. They don't fit within conservative principles. Most of them turn out dismal results. They don't actually get what they're supposed to be getting. And if it doesn't accomplish what it's supposed to be getting, in my mind, you failed. So, and I don't want to talk party and pretend. I don't want to talk party and weigh one against the other. My point, both parties do this. All politicians do this, where they'll take up the opposite side of a position that they normally stand on principle whenever it benefits them, which tells me that they have no principles. It tells me that it's all about winning. To which I say, I want to start an organization called No Clout 12 and Out. I want everyone in Congress that is a continuous serving member of Congress, a career politician who served over 12 years, and I don't care whether that's 12 years in the House, 12 years in the Senate, or 12 years split between the House and Senate combined, maximum of 12 years. So if you serve three terms in the House, you have one term to serve in the Senate, and then you're out. You can't serve in Congress again. And I think that'd be valuable, because the average person, I think last time I saw the poll, is around 80-something% of the U.S. wants term limits on Congress. It is some astronomical percentage, and that's across every poll I've ever seen it taken it. Term limits for Congress, and I've seen many polls that say they like term limits on Supreme Court. I think the situation that we just had with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and it's not completely rare considering how few Supreme Court justices we've had in our history. It's not really rare for a Supreme Court justice to die in office. However, it's not that common either. But there's a point where your best years cognitively are far behind you. All right. So term limits on Supreme Court justices, I think, would be a valid thing as well. But that being said, the term limits on Congress, I think, are absolutely necessary right now, because there's some things that have been mentioned this week. When our state houses elected, they appointed our senators. that was a check on the power of the Senate and their ability to basically protect themselves, and the being solely relegated to popular vote control. Oh, hey, Aaron. Yeah, 12 years I think is on point. So the 12 years I think is absolutely necessary. When the Senate was appointed by the state house, the states had more control over their senators, which meant that the senators couldn't become what we commonly refer to now as the Club of 100, where they do whatever they want and they're largely protected from by their incumbency in the system that they've created around themselves from challengers. So that saves them from having to worry about an upstart challenger like myself or any of the new challengers that are coming up. And the challengers that typically take them out are usually ones with massive machines behind them. Huge, massive campaign machines where the entire party is backing them, because that's basically what it takes. You don't typically find upstart working class candidates that take out established incumbent senators. And they do that by design. Many of the election rules are set there by design to make sure that the same pool of candidates are constantly segregated off from the average everyday person in society. And that should not be a strange concept to most people as we continue forward. So again, I said term limits are necessary, and as for the House, we have a large portion. I just saw a map of what our House makeup looks like based on generation. And baby boomers, while being the generation, when you look at how old the average sitting House member is, you look at age demographics and you start to look at how long they've actually been in office, it becomes very, very clear that this government has been operating, regardless of what happens in each election, this government has actually been operating largely and consistently on its own. Like I mentioned in my last episode, the polling for Congress is in the low double digits. I think it was at 14%, the approval rating for Congress last time I checked. This approval rating should be very clear to people. 14%, considering how much people hate Congress and think that their inaction is a travesty, is pretty plain and plain as day. However, another poll was done where in the same poll it asked whether or not, or what the approval rating was for most voters for their individual candidates, and they thought their individual state representatives serving in Congress, they had like an 80% approval rate. So obviously there are people either not employing critical thinking and are believing the bullshit that their congressmen are telling them, which is, it's all their fault. I can be here for 30 years. I've accomplished what everything you sent me for if it wasn't for them, which is a lie. It is a lie. In fact, we send you there to fight. You should only be there for a certain amount of time, because there's only so long you can be in the swamp before you become a swamp creature. Before you become a vestige of the environment that you're in. You actually start to become the people that you're around. Guilty by association. Eventually, when everything in DC is about survival and longevity of your personal career, that's what ends up being SVI 720. You're right. This bill is a complete slap in the face. I completely agree with you. And I'm glad Trump vetoed it. I am. Hopefully, the next bill we get back, I don't want to see 2,000 pages. I don't even want to see I don't even want to see 1,000 pages. I want to see a straight, if this is going to be a bill, it's going to be about COVID-19, you should be able to accomplish everything you got to say in 100 pages. The budgeting, all that shit, you should be able to accomplish it. If it's about COVID-19, it shouldn't have budget items for other agencies and wish lists and pet projects and special interests and cronies and this and that and the other. It shouldn't have any of that in it. We shouldn't be having to deal with that. We should be able to have clean bills that the average person, and it should not be in legalese. As a matter of fact, our founding fathers warned against that multiple times. The idea that the average citizen would not be able to understand the bills that they were reading and they were passing for people. And I think that's a valid criticism. It's a valid criticism. I think that is something that definitely needs to be fixed. Because where we are right now, SV 720, again, at this point, the government made it clear they don't care about Americans. Yes, you're right. They made it very clear that they don't care about us. If they had cared about us, they wouldn't have passed this bill. However, I also have to say that some of the blame rests on us. As our system was supposed to be based on the idea of having an informed populace that would consistently pay attention and hold our elected representatives accountable. Now, as for the conservative side, because I myself am a conservative, so I'll speak from that vein. Conservatives, we vote people in, and we've had a long track of, the lesser two evils. We vote for the guy, but then we pay attention to what they're doing. Or at least we pay attention and we whine and we bitch and then we drink a beer, smoke a cigar, or drink a glass of whiskey, and it's done and over with and we go to work the next day. Which I believe is a failure of our conservatism, because no one said in conservatism that we had to be apathetic. The idea of us being the silent majority, it needs to end. We need to be the vocal majority. We need to be active majority. We need to be people who are out there holding our elected representatives accountable, even in between the election cycles. And that doesn't just go for the elected representatives that we choose to be in office, but the ones that we don't like too. I mean, if we lose in Georgia, if conservatives lose in Georgia, and Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff are elected, it is what it is. I'm going to be pissed. I'm not going to be happy about it. However, what I will not do is I will not stop pushing them to do right by us. Again, I'm in New Hampshire. I have no problem pushing Jean Shaheen and Maggie Hassan to represent us properly in Congress. That goes for any elected representative that we have. I think having a populace that is largely disengaged, where we vote people into office and then we walk away and assume that the job is done, I think that's an unproductive mode of engaging in our Republican form of government, small r Republican form of government. That's not how we were designed to operate. You heard about streaming and talking news related topics can get you a felony? No, it can't. No, it can't. I appreciate if you're being sarcastic. I got you. I got you, and I do think it's funny. However, as conservatives, we've been largely apathetic. We vote, we go to work, we ignore, or at least we're not active, and that is our failure. The one thing I can respect about yes, I saw that it was in the bill. I saw that it was in the bill, or at least as far as I could, as much as I could get a hold of. Now, the idea is we've been largely apathetic. Thanks, Brandon. Thanks, Payne. Love you too, brother. Uh, we've been largely apathetic, and that apathy is rooted in a base level in conservatism. We're not activists. That typically stays on the right. Now, that wasn't always true, because the right has become activists at certain points in time, and you know when these points are because they're the major points in history where the tides have turned one way or the other. So the idea that we are the silent majority is very, very likely. A lot of us are silent. A lot of us don't even vote because we have a disdain for a system that we believe left us behind. Now, what I've seen across the country, having lived in the inner city and in rural and suburban areas in many different states so far, is many of the same complaints in regard to government and how our elected representatives are supposed to be stewards of their community that they ran to represent, aren't actually stewards of their community, and they do what they can to pad their position in office, and that doesn't benefit the citizenry. Okay, so for example, rural Americans complain about the jobs that got shipped overseas, their towns collapsing that were built around a single industry, a mill or a factory, things of that sort, entire towns and districts and cities within the Rust Belt that got destroyed. And that happened as well in many of the inner cities like Chicago, Detroit, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and it continues to happen. SVI 720, do you see people revolting soon over the nonsense going on, even if martial law gets declared? First off, I'm not for martial law being declared. I'm not for it at all. Anybody that's ever been to war can tell you right now, there's never just two sides to the war. There will always be people who will take advantage of whatever situation that happens, and we have other powers that be within this country. We have gangs, we have cartels, we have private military who will back whatever party they're on, and in addition, we're the most powerful nation on the planet, so every foreign nation that likes us or doesn't like us or has their own aims will back a side. It will never be so clear as just two sides going at it. So I'm not okay with martial law, because even if martial law worked out, let's game it out for a minute. Even if it worked out and it were to turn out the results that you desire, which in history, I've never seen martial law in any way, shape, or form, or a military coup or a revolution actually turn out the desired results that initiated it in the first place, where it actually ended up in more liberty for the individual, more liberty for the people, and less power in the state, because whoever fills that vacuum at the end of it is normally who decides whether you trend liberty or whether you trend not in the opposite direction towards authoritarianism. And when you trend, when you put one person in charge like that, initially when you collapse the government and you start to tear down the system, what you end up getting is an individual who believes that they need to restore order. And when it comes to restoring order, you quickly get into a scenario where you end up having to lay down the law. So kind of like a Wyatt Earp in Tombstone. All right, you end up having to be the guy that has to use vicious means. And even though Tombstone was an awesome movie, eventually you end up having to take vicious means to accomplish. It's sort of a dystopian means to accomplish a utopian end. That's why utopia is impossible, because it requires dystopian means to accomplish. Now, do I see people revolting soon over the nonsense going on? That's very likely. That's very likely. I mean, I've seen militia groups getting rowdy in Oregon, and they're pissed off, and they have the right to be. You have a state and city governments that have locked them down, and they've ignored it, and they've let Antifa and really, I'm gonna. can't really discuss Antifa rioting in these cities without getting in a little bit deeper. So bear with me for a minute. There is two different types, and Antifa has been running in the background of Black Lives Matter. I'm sure everyone is familiar with Black Lives Matter from what you've seen on TV, but actually goes a little bit deeper, and the organization has a little bit longer history. There were Black Lives Matter that were actually smaller community groups that wanted to hold their own community responsible, their elected officials in their own community responsible. George Soros backs the Black Lives Matter Incorporated. All right, this is the Patrisse Cullors and the three black lesbian women at the top of the tier. I can't remember the other two names off the top of my head because Patrisse Cullors is the one that gets all the press. All right, and she's the one, if I remember correctly, just got the big deal with HBO. So when you take the Black Lives Matter. Diana Tar, yes, you were right. People have already started, and it is growing, but it's not enough to change. But yes, the Antifa and the Black Lives Matter. Antifa, there's actually many Antifa or Black Lives Matter groups that are complaining about the fact that these little Antifa soy boys have actually infiltrated their movement, taken it over, and they're the ones that started much of the violence. If you've ever heard of mob theory, as people group together, they get less rational, and it only takes one spark to start a fire. And that's exactly how it works. When people get, if you've ever watched a crowd of people, and you see a fight or you see two people start to go at each other like they're about to get in a fight, it only takes one person to scream out, "He called you a bitch!" And then all of a sudden, the fight breaks out, and it only takes, and you could be in the crowd and have nothing to do with the actual fight and punch somebody standing in the crowd, and all of a sudden, there's a big-ass mob beating the hell out of each other. And that's largely how a lot of these riots and stuff work. BLM is getting used as a shield to get away with crimes. Most BLM protests I've attended never had colored folks. You're right. You're right. If you look at these BLM, they started out, there were many black people in the streets, but as the violence and the vandalism and stuff started, if you notice, there are a lot less black people in these groups and a lot more Antifa. And you can tell that it's Antifa because they all dress the same. They all dress the same. They show up with shields and bats, and they act uniformly just like in every other city in the country. They all act the same. So, and you're right, in most BLM protests happen during the day, and then the violence happens at night. That's just like your parents may have told you growing up. What happens at night is nothing good. What happens after the sun goes down is not going to be anything good. Get home before the street lights go out. At least that's how I grew up. So that being said, in regard to BLM and Antifa, do I see people then in response to that, you had the Proud Boys and other militia groups that being pissed and angry about what has transpired and the communities that have been torched and destroyed by Antifa activists and rioters and looters who have all been let off by their prospective state prosecutors or city prosecutors or whatever. They have been let out, and when that happened, it basically pushed many of these young men, and they're not all white and they're not all black either. It would be disingenuous to pretend that it's a white supremacist group, and disingenuous to pretend that this is a whole bunch of minorities. It's a diverse group. Some groups tend more diversity than others. It doesn't matter. There's not a whole lot of information. I wouldn't work with the Proud Boys if I had the opportunity, because their tactics and the way that they carry themselves and that they act out in public, I view as largely counterproductive. But it's one thing to defend people against violence. It's completely different to use violence yourself, not in respond to somebody else's violence. You get what I'm saying? You hit first, you're the bad guy. They hit first, they're the bad guy. I think that's a fair explanation. I know I'm getting a little bit off topic, so I'm going to bring it back real quick. But as far as SVI 720, do I see people revolting soon over this nonsense going on? Yes. Yes. In small amounts. I don't believe it'll be in large amounts. It would take somebody either very cognizant of the danger that they would be inciting and the chaos that they would be inciting, or it would take somebody that is a complete idiot and all in their feels, causing a reaction that would be completely unnecessary and I want to say completely counterproductive to actually accomplishing anything meaningful. And again, I don't condone violence. I don't want to see that happen. I don't want to see martial law. I don't want to see Trump use the Insurrection Act. There are still many chess pieces on the board. There's still many things that we can do. There's still ways that we can save, as conservatives, that we can save our country from going too far left. And the answer to that is not to go too far right either, but to have a proper, it's a yin and yang, the contrast, the good and the evil, the light and the dark. We complement and contrast each other, and that is how our government is designed to work. Actually, the founding fathers were very explicit about their belief that divided government is a good thing, because you can never trend too far in one direction, or at least too fast. Even though we've found out over the years that many of our elected officials are working for themselves and their establishment types and not really working for us. And you have two populist movements trying to take over their respective parties right now. Right now, the populist movement on the right makes up the majority of the voters, and the populist movement on the left makes up, I'd say, about 30 to 40% of their voters. And that is going to be growing too, as you just saw Joe Biden get into office and pretty much tell all the black civil rights activists and leaders to basically sit down and shut the fuck up. That's going to piss some people off. Some people are going to start, the more the voting populace is ignored, the more militant the average voter is going to get. Diana, the effective check and balance system is needed. Yes, you're right. The check and balance system in this country has been eroded because we've largely stopped paying attention. You have a large swath of the country that does not properly have an understanding of how our government works and how it was formulated, what was the reasoning behind it, what knowledge were our founding fathers working off at the time, because they referenced the theories, and there's many references in their own writings and the ratification debates and the Federalist Papers of them talking to each other, in which they were basically referencing where their theories and their founding ideologies were coming from. You know, Locke, Rousseau, Hobbes, Alexis de Tocqueville, Charles Montesquieu, obviously Madison, Blackwood, and I can continue to go on, Crowley and all that. Those came later. However, again, the checks and balance system needs to be restored. Me personally, I'm a fan of the Convention of States because that is a conversation that is being had at me and your level, and it is a conversation that starts and the solutions start down here at our level, where we have normal conversations with each other and we talk solutions. We can talk solutions over politics. We can talk principles over party, and we largely agree on a lot of stuff. It's actually been, when it's introduced to state houses and stuff, it's actually had a pretty decent success rate of getting passed. However, I believe at the moment, I believe it's been passed by 16 or 17 different state houses and adopted, and it would need basically another 16 or 17 to, or maybe another 18 to actually go into effect, in which case, and the best check on it, look up the Liberty Amendments. I don't care if you like the author. I'm not actually a big fan of the author himself, but his explanation of what the Liberty Amendments are in the Convention of States is a solid definition and explanation. It's the Liberty Amendments by Mark Levin. It is definitely worth a read. I have yet to see anybody read it that didn't largely agree with the premise and most of the solutions. Okay. As far as restoring our checks and balance system and getting rid of some of the loopholes in our government, because our founding fathers knew that there would be loopholes, and what they aimed to protect, that people would eventually find it, as all governments tend to follow the same track of decay over time, from freedom to authoritarianism, all and back to freedom again. They all end up following that same track, and the founding fathers knew this. So that's obviously why we have the checks and balances, the amendment process, and everything, so forth. Diana, again, working with my state government for ratification of the Convention of States in Kansas. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I think that's great. Promote it as much as you can. I got to tell you, the Loeffler and Purdue, the text messages acting as if you're completely freaking desperate for funds is, if you see this, it's not becoming, and it's actually a turnoff, and it makes me not want to donate to you. It makes me want to tell you to fuck off. However, we got off topic for a minute, but I want to get back to, we're going into the holidays, and as things start to wind down and Congress is not in session and they're going home and sitting in their lavish houses, with the lockdowns, you've had Dr. Fauci and you've had many others say that we need to ignore basically stay away from our families so that we don't infect each other or whatever. But those exact same people that have imposed lockdowns and told us to stay away from our families have gone out with their families in big, huge groups and have ignored their own lockdown orders. So I say it's time for civil disobedience. I don't know about you. I'm having family over. Hell, I'll have the whole block over just to piss people off. Just because these lockdown orders, it's one thing. If you come out with all the information responsibly and you provide me everything I need to make a proper, logical, and intelligent decision, I will make that decision and I will largely cooperate with you. If you start to threaten force, you're going to get a completely different response from me. My response is not going to be nice, and it's not going to be cooperative. It's going to be a big fuck you, and Mo and Labe, come take them if you want them. Come and get them. Come, if you think that force is your way to get me to do what you want me to do, come and try it. Now, that being said, and again, that's self-defense. Self-defense. So I'm not advocating violence. I don't want violence. I think we have too many chess pieces left on the board that we can accomplish solutions, and we can get a hold of, even if we lose these races, even if if you have Democratic elected representatives, you need to be in their face too. You need to be talking to them. You need to be pounding the steps of your Capitol House and your State House, and you need to be lighting up the phone lines of your elected representative, regardless of whether they are a Democrat or Republican. We should be holding all of our elected representatives accountable. The idea that we should allow our elected representatives to drift in one way or the other, too far right or too far left, because this constituency elected them, and allow them to ignore the rest of the constituency, that ends up creating bad blood where we're constantly at each other's throats, and it's unnecessary. If we all work to hold our elected representatives accountable, and we force them to acquiesce to us, not us to acquiesce to them, we'll end up with better results. If you have any other questions, I have no problem answering them. Go ahead and throw them on here. But so, like I said, I'm having family over, and SVI 720. I feel like this will be the last Christmas for America to be real. I don't. Even in the middle of battlefields, even in the middle of war, even in the middle of pandemics and plagues and stuff, we've still had Christmases, and I don't think that would change. It's a special holiday for, even atheists and agnostics support Christmas. Okay, we have a large growing anti-Christian populace in the country, and yet they all support Christmas. I don't think that Christmas is going away anytime soon. And as much as people may be panicking about this election, I did not put all my faith in Donald Trump, so I'm not panicked because I see other paths to take. I understand the sentiment. I understand how you may feel because there was cheating and fraud that went on this election, and it would be completely disingenuous for anyone to say that there was absolutely no cheating or fraud. The existence of fraud and cheating and the ability to prove it are two completely different things. If I were to go out here and OJ my wife right now and the prosecution couldn't prove it in court, I don't go to jail. I'm pretty sure that isn't that exactly what happened? And largely that has to do with how much money I can throw into having a lawyer too. So, like I said, I'm gonna have family over. I'm making a ham, and I like to do a bourbon brown sugar glaze on my ham. I'm feeling hungry right now, so I'm going to talk about some food real quick. I like to do a bourbon brown sugar glaze on my food. I like to on my ham. I did on my turkey this year too. And I'm going to be making a stuffing. I do an apple stuffing, in which I chop up the apples, dip them in a little bit of Fireball whiskey and lemon juice, and then I mix them in with the stuffing once I've created the chicken stock and soak the stuffing in them. In addition to, celery and a hefty, decent, liberal amount of seasoning. And my wife has a thing for green bean casserole, so we'll be making that as well. And I'm going to be making some candied yams with a brown sugar granola style, a crisp topping. That's going to be the favorite for the kids. We were going to do a mac and cheese, but after the whole family ate all the mac and cheese on Thanksgiving and didn't let me get any, my wife made 2 more dishes of mac and cheese, and then her co-workers wanted her to bake mac and cheese for them too, so she took them into work. And I ended up with basically we've had so much mac and cheese between baked mac between Thanksgiving and now that I might be a little bit maxed out. No, no, no. That's blasphemous. That's blasphemous. We're probably going to do mac and cheese too. And I'm going to get a nice new bottle of bourbon, probably Jefferson's. I'm a big fan of Jefferson's small batch whiskey. It's definitely worth it. Again, so let's talk about solutions. Okay. Remember, subscribe and share. Tell your friends. Share and retweet. Share if you're on Facebook. Retweet if you're on Twitter. Multiple times. Let everybody know. Subscribe to the channel. I'll have my new website will be dropping this week, sometime very soon, in which everything will be aggregated in one area. Articles will be there. Our kinfolk, our other thought leaders in the movement will be able to submit articles, and you can submit articles as long as they are solution and principle based, not party, not politician based. I don't defend politicians. I wouldn't do it on my page either, strictly because we do not know these people. We cannot pretend to know the character of these people, and as we continue to see, they don't give two shits about us. So I won't defend politicians. I will call balls and strikes exactly how I see them, and but I would like to stick to solutions and principles, ideas of how we can move forward and change things. So we got a big pivot coming. So I wanted to bring up something that one of the people within the network or within this space have. I wanted to bring up Giancore, the Giancore blog with Chad. I'm letting them know right now. With Chad and Uncle Hotep. I wanted to let you guys know they have a blog that they're coming out with, and they can give you more information. I'm going to try to have them on the show as soon as possible so that we can discuss this and they can give you a better description of what's going on. Corey, Inspire the Block, and Saul G, they have their Brown Paper Bag podcast, Corrected Felon podcast, Purple Pill podcast, and Comic Kage podcast. And they're making an app right now. So, and when they're ready to announce that app, again, I'm going to try to have them on, and they can direct you guys to it, and we can all support each other and grow this out there, because we cannot keep complaining about Google and YouTube and Facebook and Twitter constantly stifling us and shutting us down. We need to be providing our own solutions and building our own. And honestly, I used to think that there was no way to possibly fix most of this. I used to think that there was no way to fix the situation that we're in right now, where the powers that be so blatantly do not work for us and do not represent us, that, I mean, we would be left in a situation where we actually had to create our own. And I didn't think that it would actually be possible. I didn't think that so many people would be successful at building, that would start to become successful, and I didn't think that people would start to gravitate to them this fast. So I'm actually very inspired by seeing this take place. So let's see. I went through the stimulus bill, which is a whole big crock of shit. and we're getting screwed over. Went through the whole BLM Antifa thing, and went through I don't believe martial law is a good thing, and I don't believe the Insurrection Act is a good thing. I'm glad the bill got vetoed. Got into some food. Let me know what you're planning on cooking for Christmas. Are you planning on having people over? All right. I might do another episode for Christmas Eve tomorrow, a largely laid back, simple episode. It's most likely not going to be long because I know that it's Christmas Eve and you're going to be with your family and stuff. So again, do me a favor, like, subscribe, check me out on Facebook. I also have an Instagram, and I got a Parler account. I'm checking it out. It is sort of an echo chamber, but I'm checking it out. I need to diversify and try out new things. Eventually, I'm going to try to get this on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts, and the Rumble app as well. All right? And I want you guys to have a good night. Don't forget to subscribe and share. Look me up on Twitter, bluecollarintellectual.com. Or, I'm sorry, Blue Collar Intellectual on Twitter. And I will see you guys soon. All right? So, have a good night. And maybe I'll see you guys tomorrow. Maybe not. But stay frosty. It's Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast signing out.
And what kind of player am I? Am I an offensive man or a defensive man? That's right, I'm neither. I play my opponent. If he likes to attack, I force him to defend himself. He's a cautious man, I draw him into dangerous water. See, you get so frustrated playing defensive positions, you make stupid moves you never make if you were thinking. When you come here, boy, check that shit at the door.
I'm at the top of my game, cut the check. Somebody better king me, I'm the best. Let's play a game of checkers. Better yet, the game don't love nobody. Let's play chess.